כפי שמתבקש בימים אלו. אנחנו לעתים נראים פחות יפים, אבל זה מגיע לנו. So, I'd like to start by saying Boker Tov and good morning to everyone, Shana Tova, and thank you all for joining us at this celebration of Maury Greenfield's 95th birthday. My parents' acquaintance with the Herzog family goes back many years, and today it's kind of closing a circle. At some point, my father realized that the story of Aliyah Bet and the American volunteers is an unknown story. No one knew of the American volunteers. Everybody knew of the Exodus, but they did not know there were 10 ships that had an American crew. So he decided to research, and eventually he came to a good publisher called Geffen Publishing to publish the book. The book is called The Jews' Secret Fleet. And then he and a few of his friends decided that maybe they should have a reunion in Israel for all those volunteers that are still alive, and they should come to Israel. So they gathered over 100 volunteers who came from all over the world, again, mostly Americans, mostly Jews, some non-Jews, and they had an event, a reunion of all these volunteers in Bet HaPalmach, if I'm not mistaken, 1987. At that event, we brought to the event the first book, The Jews' Secret Fleet, and that book was presented to no other than the President Chaim Herzog. So today it's kind of closing the circle a few years later, and we want to thank the President for joining us. It's a big honor for us. It's something that I don't think everybody expects. So I really want to thank you, and I'd like to invite you, כבוד נשיא המדינה, מר יצחק הרצוג, תודה.
תודה רבה לכולכם. I'll speak in English, אבל קודם כל אני רוצה להגיד שלום לכולכם. זה לא סתם שאנחנו מתכנסים פה, זה סיפור שחייב להיות מסופר, והכי מרגש אותי שיש פה ילדים ונכדים וצאצאים של אנשים שהיו באונייה יחד עם אורי. וזה הסיפור שהוא הכי חשוב מכולם. I'll turn to English, and I want to thank you, Ilan, of course, and first and foremost, our dear friend, dear Maury. I'm so delighted to join the Greenfield clan and the distinguished guests gathered here to celebrate your 95th birthday. I know I'm going to star also in the movie. I apologize in advance, I won't be at the movie. I have other events to get to, but I'm so happy to be here and honored to be here. Reaching this age is a milestone in and of itself. But coming together here in Medinat Israel to mark this occasion and celebrate the man of the hour in person and in the presence of your beautiful family, this is the realization of so many dreams, and I feel privileged to join this simcha. This evening, we enter Shabbat Bereshit, the first Shabbat since completing the reading of Chamisha Chomshei Torah. Tomorrow morning in Shul, the Jewish people will go back to the very beginning, relearn the story we have read so many times before, and recall our origins. Mari, you were there at the very beginning of this venture, which evolved into a miraculous Jewish state of Israel. When you volunteered to leave the United States and illegally assist survivors who fled Europe and accompany them to Israel, and when you were deported to Cyprus, you didn't know where you will end up. When you made Aliyah in 1947, you could not have imagined the flourishing country that we see today. I'm certain you could not have dreamt of the life you and your beloved Chana built. As a teenager, you were a pioneer, and at 95 years old, you will remain, and you are a trailblazer, a symbol of love of the land and people of Israel, of proud and proactive Jewish living. You are truly a modern-day hero. You display your Zionism with all your might, b'chol me'odcha, Through your acts, words, legacy, family, and even your livelihood, Geffen Publishing House, with which I had the pleasure of working on so many beautiful publications, first and foremost on a beautiful biography of my late grandfather, Rabbi Herzog. The same Ahavat Israel that you have, your kids have, I saw it with my dear friend Ilan and the entire family, and it inspires all of us. So therefore, Mazal Tov to you. May you be blessed with strength and good health, and may you enjoy the fruits of your labor for many, many, many years to come. Yom Huledet Sameach Lemari.
Thank you very much, Mr. Herzog. As I said before, it's a great honor for us that you're here with us. We consider you a friend and a president. I would like to thank the staff at ANU for hosting this event in honor of my father. Liora Shani and her staff, thank you for all the work involved. It has been a pleasure working with you. You have been able to facilitate everything that we asked for. When I first called the museum, it was to obtain the rights for some footage that they had about my father. And I asked them a question, and they asked me, what is it for? I said, I'm having a celebration, 95 years for my father. They asked me, who's your father? I said, Murray Greenfield. They said, hold on. Adi Akunis called me up and said to me, listen, Murray Greenfield, we're going to host the event. It's an honor for us. I said, what do you mean? He said, listen, Murray is a legend here. He comes to every meeting. He's with us since 1982. Not everybody likes what he says, but he continues saying what he says. He has no fear. He says, you know, we sit there in this room, and he just goes on and says what he says. Steve Lindy of the Jerusalem Post will attest to that. He calls him up almost every other day, telling him what he did wrong, and Steve always says, you know what? He's right. So it's a pleasure. It's kind of another circle that's closing that we're doing this here. Murray has been with the museum since 1982, and every time that Adi used to fill in the annual reports of Agudat Yedidei Museum, his name came up and she says, oh my God, Murray Greenfield. So thank you very much, Adi. It's really fantastic. I'd like to invite the CEO of the ANU Museum, Dan Tadmor, to say a few words. Dan, thank you very much for joining us today.
בוקר טוב, ברוכים הבאים, כבוד נשיא המדינה, אורחים נכבדים. It's an honor and a privilege to host this event. Our museum tells the unique and ongoing story of the Jewish people. Today we celebrate the unique and ongoing story of Murray Greenfield. Murray, those of you who are familiar with his biography, has been a part of every station of this country's life. Look at every important junction and he was there with his unique contribution. One of those stations happens to be this museum. Murray joined our Israeli friends in 1982 and has been a long-standing friend since then. Through the triumphs and the challenges, this recent period is a period of triumph. For those who don't know, in March we opened our new museum, which is now the biggest and most comprehensive museum of its kind in the world. Approximately 7,000 square meters of brand new exhibition space. So for those of you who have not seen the museum, either today after this event or some other day, we invite you to come and enjoy the museum. Murray, thank you for all that you've done for us, for being a part of this, and it is a privilege to host this event. Mazal Tov.
Thank you very much, Dan. The truth is that in our family, we never really celebrated my father's birthdays. He never made a fuss of this. It wasn't important for him, you know, life goes on, you have a mission, who cares about birthdays? When he was a kid, I'm not even sure that they celebrated birthdays then. He never really told us stories about it, and he always remembered that this birthday was because that one, I mean, he had analogies of how to remember birthdays, but he never remembered any birthdays. At the age of 90, my wife Karen had a great idea, and we took him to Cyprus with all the members of the family. It was a full surprise. He knew nothing. When he got to the airport, we told him we're going to Cyprus. He said, have a great time. We said, Daddy, you're coming with us. He said, no, I'm not. I said, what do you mean, you're coming with? He said, I have meetings. I said, Daddy, you have no meetings. Everything was fake. I said, Daddy, he said, I don't have any clothes. Daddy, you have clothes. We have a suitcase for you. We had an amazing trip. We met there the son of the chief of the king of Cyprus when they were detained. So we had a lot of great things. It was a fantastic, I would say, experience for the family, for the 4 generations, etc. At 92, we all went to Engedi. And at 92, he climbed up halfway to Nachal David. Wow. Just to show you who Murray Greenfield really is. We're very proud to say, and today at 95, we're very proud to say that we have lots of nachas from our father. No birthday without a surprise is a real birthday. So Abba, today we have a small surprise for you. No one knows about it. And I want to invite Colonel Semyon Toal of the Israeli Navy. He's the head of the planning and organizing department of the Israeli Navy. Bakasha.
Hello everybody. President of Israel, His Excellency Mr. Yitzhak Herzog, Mr. Dan Tadmor, CEO of the Jewish People Museum, Mr. Murray Greenfield, the Greenfield family, distinguished guests. We gather here today in the beginning of the new year to note and reflect the accomplishment of Mr. Murray Greenfield while marking this 95th birthday. My name is Semyon Gamro, a captain in the Israeli Navy, and I, as the representative of the Israeli Navy, would like to take a moment to salute you. Murray, you along with your friends were anonymous warriors, all engaged in the holy act of leading the immigration of European Jewry to Israel, from the roads and fields, through terror and danger to the safe homeland in Israel. Locating seamen in America was a complicated task, which demanded creativity and courage, 2 characteristics that would help you create the unbelievable effort you later achieved. The volunteers joined the dangerous and complex mission covertly, taking no pay and risking jail time. Murray, who had merchant fleet experience, was one of the leaders of the Tikva ship. The Tikva ship was one of 10 referred as the American ships used the immigration effort. These ships enabled larger numbers of immigrants due to their size. The ship left the United States, crossing the Atlantic Ocean, and arrived to the Lisbon port, at the Lisbon port on the eve of the Passover evening. Afterwards, continued to France, and later collected more Jews from the Italian beaches. They did so and not at the port in order to avoid any detection. The ship set to sail to Israel on May 7, 1948, with 1,414 immigrants on board. Upon arrival in Israel, the journey and its hardship did not end, even though these immigrants went through unspeakable events during the Holocaust. They and their children were immediately expelled to Cyprus. There too, they tried to escape in Dig Tunnel, and upon returning to Israel, Murray didn't forget to blow up the stern of the ship in order to make sure that the ship would not be used to manage Jews again from Israel. The Tikva ship had the honor of being one of the very first ships to be commissioned into the newly established Hebrew fleet and was given the name K-22. This was Mary, determined, committed to the mission and always looking ahead. Even in his later years, Murray worked to encourage Aliyah and the absorption of Jewish immigrants to the development of the Jewish industry in the newly developed state of Israel, and all in order to solidify the young country. Murray was also involved in the immigration and absorption of Ethiopian Jewry in Israel, all in a humble manner, while displaying sheer skill and dedication. Murray, I'd like to take this moment to thank you on behalf of the Israeli Navy and on behalf of those you brought here, who together brought the establishment of the State of Israel. Thank you for your will to survive, volunteer to act with determination, with optimism and honesty, true Zionism. To the young men that took command and in darkness led others to the designated place, the right place, without a compass or a map on the hand, while on the run being chased. Thank you all. A small memo from Navy.
Thank you very much, Semyon. I will read what the plaque says. לשכת מפקד זרוע הים, מורי גרינפילד, בהוקרה על התנדבותך כאיש צוות על אוניית המעפילים התקווה בשנת 1947, בה הגיעו לארץ ישראל 1,414 ניצולי שואה, ועל חלקך במפעל המוסד לעלייה ב', בו הגיעו לארץ ישראל 32,000 ניצולי שואה על גבי 10 אוניות מעפילים ובהם מתנדבים אמריקאים. סיפורך מהווה השראה לדורות הבאים, כל ישראל ערבים זה לזה, בהערכה בה משפחת זרוע הים. My parents had 3 kids, Meira, Dror, and myself. Dror, unfortunately, is not with us today, but I take this opportunity to invite Meira to come and say a few words. Meira.
First of all, כל הכבוד to my brother, he really surprised me. Thank you from the חיל הים. And shalom everybody, so moving to see my whole life and for my life right here in front of us. And I hope I'll give you a little bit of a different angle of my father. So first of all, President Buzzi Herzog, Dan Tadmor, CEO of the Amnok Museum, Hatikva boat passengers, and progeny, friends, and family. Shalom. I'm Ira Harten Greenfield, as I heard, daughter of Murray, and of course also my mother Chana, Zichronah Livracha, who, I'm not going to speak about a lot, but my father brought Nitzolei Shoah from Europe. He married Nitzolei Shoah, who was under German rule for 5 years, from 1939 to 1945. And I don't want to go into details, but everybody can imagine what that means. As an educator and a safta, I sort of, I would like to speak in Hebrew. I often have this dilemma between speaking Hebrew, the language of our Bible, and speaking English, as my grandchildren should learn English, and it's the language of the lingua franca of the world. But today, it has been decided for me, so I should speak in English. And I hope everyone can follow my words. At least I'll mention the Bible, and as our president Bushi said, the portion of the week is Parashat Bereshit, which recounts the creation of the world. But he did say that my father's Hebrew date of birth is Rosh Hashanah, which is Yom Harat Olam. The day of the birth of the world. So it's certainly the day to tell my father's tale. Our sages, Chazal, Chachamim Zichron Livracha, say that each and every man is a small world. And my parents were certainly a rich, energetic, and a very active world, which I cannot convey the energy, but I will try. In the world of our family, like Ilan said, it's true, birthdays were very little significance, unless of course it had a Jewish meaning. When I was 12 years old, my parents threw a big party for me in our backyard, but that was because it was my bat mitzvah, for which I learned the tropes. And then in the shelter, it was during the 6-Day War, and I read the Torah in our then Reform Shul, as the first girl who read the Torah in our Reform Shul, on Ibn Gvirol Street, with Rabbi Zemel, Zichron Livracha. Some people know him. Aside from this birthday celebration, individual birthdays I don't remember. In our family, although my parents were very individualistic, no one can deny that, their thinking was far from the me or the I philosophy as we know it today in the iPad, iPod, iPhone world. My father at home used only the first person plural pronoun, we. My parents always accountable for each other, they were we. We the children were supposed to be accountable for each other, and we were we. And it was the big we, the Jewish people, with no apologies or so-called political correctness. In that sense, it is so special, Dan, if I may point to you, that of all places, it's the Anna Museum, namely the We Museum, that called for this event in honor of my father. My parents worked intensively for Parnassah. They did. But uniquely, always coordinated with a Jewish cause. My father, imaginative, and at the same time down to earth, thought of many ideas for avodah and Torah in his own way of thinking, and pursued them with my mother. For example, one of my father's initiatives was exporting Israeli food gift packages with Israeli honey, chalva, wine, etc. He did this in order that every diaspora Jew would taste the flavor of Israel on the Chagim. Next, my father and mother promoted Israeli art. Rubin, Sonny Weintraub, Shmuley Katz, Shagavai, with the idea that every Jew would wake up in the morning to view Israel on his wall. And finally, my father set up the Geffen Publishing House, putting out books such as Onkelos, Flags Over the Warsaw Ghetto by Misha Arens, The Jew's Secret Fleet by you-know-who, and so many more titles, all this. So every Jew and non-Jew deepens their understanding of the Jewish and Zionist heritage. I will conclude with 2 short ideas. Chernyakhovsky, one of the greatest Israeli poets, wrote, "Ha'adam hu tavnit nov moladeto." Man, in a broad translation, is a reflection of the landscapes of his life. You, all of you, here today, and those are our friends and family who would have been here, are the stuff from which my father is made. So I thank you all for being and for joining us this special morning. And finally, I want to tell you that our father, Murray, is a great-grandfather to 17 great-grandchildren. Just last week, in Midreshet Sde Boker, he was the godfather to the youngest. The baby is named Shalom Dror. Shalom Dror. We call it our dear late brother, Dror Virgolfach, who some of you must remember. So, with hope that we make Shalom, peace, and Dror, freedom in our souls, in our country, and in our world, I bid you for now Shalom, and I thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Always different perspective of seeing the same person. I think it's fantastic. Among us here today are many, many special people from many years that we have known, that my parents have known. There's survivors here who came on the American ships, their family members. There's a woman here who actually, הייתה מיילדת, gave birth to, she delivered the baby in Cyprus or on the ship, I don't remember, someone told me a few minutes ago. On the ship, thank you. There are family members of 4 generations of the Greenfield and Patem family. Many friends and people who've known my parents, Hannah and Mori, from many, many years and from many different facets, from different activities. I chose to mention today only one name, and all the others, please forgive me. Miki Gilad. Is Miki Gilad here? Miki Gilad. And I'll tell you why I'm mentioning his name. Miki Gilad is a survivor of Auschwitz, who met my father in 1947 when he was climbing the rope ladder under the ship, and some young American told him, Shalom. And he looked up, he couldn't understand what this English accent is, and then he realized this was Murray Greenfield, and they've been friends since 1947. You know, growing up, you hear stories from your parents, and you think that 90% is Bobemeiser. Because they tell you all these stories, how great they were, when they did fantastic things. And my father, Baruch Hashem, he's a great storyteller. And he told us so many stories. And you don't know what to believe. And Miki Gilad sent me his book so we would publish it in English. And as I'm reading it, I'm screaming out to my wife, I'm telling her, Karen, this is unbelievable. This is proof that what my father's been telling us for years is true. So, Miki Gilad wrote on my father's book, The Jews' Secret Fleet, the following. It is all your fault. Thanks to you, several numbers have been added to the single number from Auschwitz I had on my arm till then. My Tudat Zehut number, my Mispar Ishi in the Israeli army, and the passport number of my beloved country, the State of Israel. We thank you. Miki Gilad, thank you very much. In Parashat Yitro, the 5th commandment is Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha leman yarichun yamecha al adama asher Adonai noten lach. Abba, all my life I looked up at you and tried to learn from you. I want to tell you guys, it's not easy to grow up with a guy, with a person who has no fear, who has exactly the goals of where he wants to go to, has the mission in life, and nothing will stop him from achieving these goals. And there's something I didn't write, but yesterday someone sent me a short film, not so short, by Simcha Yakubovich, a film on the Ethiopian Jews, on the whole story of up to Mivtza Moshe, when it was all secret. And he tells me, watch the 58th minute. So I go to the 58th minute, you see my father, and I'll tell you something that's very, very personal. He's wearing a pullover, you know, one of these short sleeve sweaters, which the only other person who I know who wears that was my brother. It was amazing to see that. And he's standing there in the Knesset with Shlomo Hillel, and he's screaming, And he's saying, you gotta get the Jews out of Ethiopia. What do you mean? You have meetings with important people. That doesn't mean anything. Important people don't mean anything. I want tachlis. You gotta get the Jews out. And he says, and they tell me, these guys with the chutzpah, that if someone will die because we told the story, it's going to be on my head. So I told them, what happens if we get the Jews out? Will we get credit? They said, no, you'll never get us credit because you're important people. And that's my father. That's our father. He had the chutzpah. I remember stories with Sapir. He used to come to Sapir's office on his bicycle with his shorts and say, you tell Mr. Sapir I'm here. And everybody stood and said, okay, okay. And he didn't do it for himself. He did it for Olim. He did it for rights of Olim. And that was my father. That is my father. So I've learned from you so many things. But the most important thing I've learned from you is that Kol Israel Arvim Zeh Lazeh. When a fellow Jew is in trouble, it is our duty as a state and as private people to come to their help, no matter how difficult, no matter how far. As your mother told you when you told her you're not going to go to college. She said, if it's good for the Jews, then go ahead and do it. And you continue doing this throughout your life. We were brought up with a mission in mind. Each and every one of my father's businesses, like Meira said, every business venture always combined his ideology and promoting Jews of Israel and making a living. When you started Geffen Publishing with Ima 40 years ago, that was in your mind as well. Geffen stands for Gesund, Parnusse, Nachas. Put it all together. This has been a way of life for you and Ima, and I can only hope that we, your kids, your grandkids, great-grandkids, those over here and those to come yet, will be able to live up to this unique mission. Abba, you certainly are my hero and my role model. When Ima took sick, you stayed by her bed till the last breath. You shared the same bed. And you said, this is what Ima wanted, and this is what I need to do. You had a mission. This was a lesson to us all, and we shall do our best to continue this way of life and mission. I would like you, Abba, before you say a few... I would like you to come up now and say a few words. After my father will say a few words, we're going to have the movie of 30 minutes.
Very few words.
And I just want to say that the President, Yitzhak Herzog, has to leave, so he apologizes. He has other commitments. כל מי שקשור לאוניות, מעפילים, משפחה או זה, ירים את היד רגע בבקשה. Now, unknown to me, there's another surprise. So, before my father comes up to speak, you can come up. You can come up. You're here. So we're going to have a small surprise, and I hope you all enjoy the surprise. Pepe, Kadima.
This is the march.
organizing this whole event. Now, I want to invite Mori, my father, Abba, come to speak. Bevakasha.
Get off the stage. Let's go.
I only, once more, I asked before the president left, and I'd like now children or people on the Hadikva who are here that came today. And you stand up, they should know, look at you, there are a few people around. Here we go. The parents who joined us on that ship, and they came in the middle of the night and came out to the ship. They didn't know who or what, but they know that they're going to go someplace to Palestine. And it was a crazy first night because they didn't know what they're getting on to. And this ship was hardly a ship. I used to say, it's not nice in public, but anyway, we say, take a ship for yourself. It was hardly something that was worthwhile keep calling a ship. But it did what it had to do, and we carried 1,500 Jews. And there was a minyan here, a minyan there. It was in different languages. I mean, Hebrew, of course, they're davening, but some people spoke Yiddish, and I was lucky that I was brought up with a Yiddish-speaking parents, and so I could understand them. But some of them, I found out for the first time, Hungarians don't speak Yiddish. Disturbed me. What are they doing here? You learn, and it was those few days on the ship, I guess, transformed my whole life because we lived in such close community. I don't know what I'm doing up here anymore, but they told me you can speak for at least an hour. And I could do it good. Anyway, I know why the president left. But let me tell you, my relationship with the president is not only him, but his father and the one before. How did I come to the first president? I'm a shtup. I get places, I try, I make sure. I was aggravated that nobody knew about these young Americans who had volunteered to sail the ships. I said, nobody knows. Here you came here and said, Haganah, Almach, I know all these guys, nice guys, but they didn't run the ships, we sailed them. And to me it was very annoying. So I started sort of on a warpath. And the first time I met Ben Gurion, look, I dropped these names like, what the hell, I met them all over the place, these guys. And Ben Gurion's house, he asked a group of Americans to come in. He wanted to know something. Well, what are you doing, And because he used to say, Americans don't come, he had very little faith in the American Jews. And so we went around, he used to go around, or he went with this speed. Everybody said, where are you from, who are you, what you do? And I told them, I came with Ali Abed. I said, Shmi, Greenfield, Ali Abed. Ali Abed? So he looks at me, he says, what are you talking about? We spoke English, of course. At least I was sure what I was saying. And I said, that's right, Aliyah Bet. He says, who came with Aliyah? And it was the first time that he was suddenly confronted with this young American Jew. I wasn't so old then yet. And he had something to do with the ships, something to do with the Mapilim, Cyprus. He was kind of taken aback. Because of that, he came to speak at the first meeting of an organization that I was very active with, the Association of Americans and Canadians in Israel. It was to his credit that he learned something from this young, whatever you want to call me then, who had the chutzpah to tell him, listen, Boychik, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm telling you, we brought the Jews here. And of course, it's true, we did bring these ships with a large numbers of people. They gave me at least an hour to speak today, but I think that we've had enough. We heard some good, straight talk from the president, and it's really, it's nice of him to show up. He just got the job. And he's a very friendly guy. But so with all the elders, I found out. The whole rest of the family, they just built that way. So I like it, because in my family, or I should say our family, as you see, you've met Elon. Unfortunately, you can't meet Dror, but you've met Meira. We're also a nice, friendly family. We got differences like every family. On the other hand, we're friendly, and we all are very much into what this country is all about. Eretz Yisrael is more than just a place to live, and it's a place to make a life. It's a place to bring up children and build a great future. In spite of all the people around us who don't like us, we shall move ahead. And I'm only too glad. That's so nice of you to come. Well, I know they gave a kiddush, which I was surprised at. When it's a kiddush, I go, you know, any shul, everything. But I didn't know they were going to give it. It was a good kiddush. And they tell me there's food left over, you can go back and finish it. Is that right? Yes. Nice meeting you. And Shana Tova to everybody.
It's a rare picture that three of us get a picture together, so here we are. I have a few more words, but I'll say like this. We are not, in our parents' family, we were never a hugging family. So hugging like this is like a moment that is never happened before. You taught us to hug our kids, to hug our grandchildren, and it's great to be here with you, holding you, having a hug. And they're 95, it's amazing. Salute.
You're too young. He thought my father was Aliyah Shniya.
Now, so Abba, thank you very much for your words. As I told you, my father is a storyteller. You probably, many of you know. I'll ask another question. How many people here have bought a refrigerator for my father? My father is everywhere in all these years. The refrigerator worked. Worked for interviewed somewhere on TV. When I got off, I asked my father, how was it? They said, terrible. And I said, what do you mean terrible? He said, you didn't mention Geffen once. What are we here for? So I just want to show the book that my father published. Daddy, look, I'm showing the book. The Jewish Secret Fleet. It's a story of the 10 American ships who had American crews on them. Today, before you leave, we're going to give every couple, every family, one copy of this book. This is a book my father wrote in the 70s called How to Be an Oleh, or Things the Jewish Agency Never Told You. So it's a new edition. I warn you, it's written in the language of the 70s. Okay, so beware, relax. The women over here in the crowd, don't get angry that he only talks about men. It's okay, those are the days. So please take one copy. We don't have too many, so take one copy each family.
The Jewish Agency.
The next thing we're going to have, we're going to show now a film. The film is about 30 minutes. When we started working on the film, we didn't know what to include. Because really, my father can sit for hours and tell you stories, and every story is better than the one before. I'll tell you one short story. I got an email 2 days ago from someone called Mike Uris. Does the name Uris say anything to you? Leon Uris. I look at it. He has a manuscript. He wants me to publish it. So I tell my father says, it's amazing how he knows about us. So I called the guy. Last night we were talking. And I said, how did you hear about us? He says, I never heard about you. He said, my son works for a company called Geffen Productions, somewhere in the States. I looked up the name Geffen, I saw publishing, I said, let me call you. I told him, you know who my father is? He says, no. So I told him, when your father came to Israel in the 50s and he wanted to write a book about the Exodus, they said, who should I talk to? They said, speak to Mari. So my father took him around, came to my father's house, finished all the whiskey he had, and he told him stories. Then my father went to the States, and I told him, you know, my father also met your father in the States. Your father had a house in one of the islands in Long Island, right? He said, how do you know this? I said, my father went there. He says, he brought him another bottle of whiskey. So it's really amazing when you hear and see all these different things. So Yoni Glicksberg, who is the husband of Oriane, one of the hero's daughters, decided that he would make the film. And I can tell you that I think it's an amazing film. It's really a very, very short and small taste of who Maury Greenfield really is, of what he's done, and what he has yet to do. So we'll now show the movie, and thank you very much.
If the roof of this old house resembles the triangular look of a tent, it's not by mistake. Like the biblical Avraham and Sarah's tent, hospitality is the ideological foundation for this early 60s Tel Aviv house. And thus, 60 years later, it stands strong, always open for visitors, welcomed by the same man that designed it. This is Murray Greenfield's story.
Same as we printed books later, only published it, only printed in Israel. We sort of had this feeling that this is what we had to emphasize. This is in Israel and comes from Israel. And here you see when we close up the gallery in New York City, we had paintings left over. The thing is that in art, if you know something, it's dangerous. If you don't know anything, it's easy. and yet we sold on. Hey, this is the kind of thing that people like. It's Israel. Oh, that's it. They take it home, they want a painting to put on the wall, and somebody walks in the house and says, oh, you were in Israel. And so we promoted what they used to, but people always say, oh, it's schmaltz. But schmaltz, if it's done well, it's wonderful to eat on bread. Schmaltz that we sold gave us plenty of bread.
The beginning of the 40s were days of war, but that didn't hinder Murray from his positive, adventurous attitude. And at the age of 14, he somehow already owned his own car. After high school, he joined the Merchant Marines and learned a trade that in the future will come in pretty handy. When the war was over and life was back on track, Murray, as usual on Shabbat mornings, went to shul.
Saturdays, I went to synagogue. You know, when they read the Torah, we would pack up the few fellows we were, go outside. We couldn't be bothered with that stuff.
So the guys were talking outside the shul, and Murray shared some of his Merchant Marines adventures, not knowing that this short break from the Torah reading is about to change his life.
And one of the fellows says, Murray, they're looking for guys like you. I said, to me, I don't like ships. I don't like being alone.
So despite having enough of the ocean life, Murray's instinct led him to investigate this mysterious call for duty.
I called up to make a date. I didn't know where I was going. And they didn't tell me where we were going, where I was going. They said, but they would meet me at a corner in New York City. They told me where, what street, where. They told me there's a telephone booth there. They told me this recruiting guy, he'll be standing next to the telephone booth, reading a newspaper, and he'll have a hat on. And I got to New York City, I came there, and sure enough, there he is. And we went to this place called Horn and Hardest. And I remember everything there. Coffee on the wall, you put a nickel in and pull a handle down, and the cup would come, and then the coffee would go in. It's easy.
The mysterious recruiter and Murray took their cup of coffee and started talking. Here's Murray a few years back with what happened next.
First he wants to know who I am, and he sees, oh, I know something about ships. He's got a live one. And he tells me also, he said, we haven't got many guys who have been on ships that are volunteering for anything. I said, well, what is it all about? He tells me it may take a year, you may go to prison. I said, well, you know, it sounds pretty, what am I getting into? He said, our ships do not have American registration. It's illegal. They are not, what should I say, seaworthy. I said, well, okay, if that's the way it's got to be. And he said, and you will be going to Europe, and you don't know what country you'll be, and you're not sure what's going to happen. Eventually, you're going to get to a place that's not a dock, and it's not a port, and you're going to suddenly load people onto your vessel. We're going to take Jews out of Europe. That's it. We're going to take Jews out of Europe. We're going to bring them to Palestine. And he says, in Palestine, when you get there, the British are there, you're not allowed to get in. They're stopping all the vessels. And you never know what happens. Maybe they'll catch you, they'll put you in jail. Some people have gotten killed already because of the way the behavior of the British. So I tell him, listen, wait, when do you get paid for the job? I think, listen. He says, there's no money, you've got to volunteer. So I'm going. Because I said, if there's no money, then they need me. They can't just, you can buy everything, but you can't buy when you need somebody like, I must go, I must go. Why? Because I said, excuse me. I knew from my parents that we couldn't get people out. And they were all dead. And they were dead not for any other reason than they were Jews. I said, I had to do it, that's all. Maybe I know how to talk, but I'm also a doer. And I said, I'm going to go, that's it. But I had one big problem. How am I going to tell my mother I'm not going to go to college? And I went home and I sat with my mother and I told her, Mom, I'm not going to go to college. She
She couldn't believe it. She said, what do you mean you're not going to go to college? You must go to college. And she tried to find out. I said, Mom, I can't tell you. I'm not going to go to college. And then I suddenly said to her, Mom, I want to do something good for the Jewish people. She said to me, if you want to do something good for the Jewish people, you don't have to go to college. That was the end. That was it. She told nobody else that I was going to not go to college. I told nobody else. Nobody knew. And I left.
Oh, here's a really important he was on my ship. I was on his ship. This is living, and he still walks around like a major.
שמי מיכאל או מיקי גולדמן. הגעתי ארצה באוניית מעפילים התקווה, שאחד ממובילי אוניות המעפילים היה מורי גרינפילד. וכשאנחנו הגענו באחת הלילות, בלי ירח במיוחד, הגיעו מהאונייה שתי סירות גומי שהובלו על ידי מתנדבים שהיו גם כן באונייה הזו עם חבל מהאונייה עד לחוף. אנחנו עלינו על הסירות גומי האלה ומשכנו את עצמנו באותו החבל עד לאונייה. האונייה הייתה די גבוהה, אנחנו התחלנו לעלות בסולם חבלים, וכשהגענו לקצה התחלת הסיפון, מישהו שם עליי יד ואומר לי, שלום חבר. הבנתי שמי שמדבר אליי זה אמריקאי. אחר כך התברר שזה היה מורי גרינפילד. מאז, זה 70 שנה, אנחנו בידידות רבה עד היום הזה.
עוד אומרים שלום חבר.
נכון. שנינו מחכים לבואו של המשיח.
Social interaction was always Murray's strong suit. Talking to people, he's just really good at it. But with a little nudge from a good friend, talking to people became a mission, a meaningful one, a mission that he is still pursuing today. That good friend was Annabelle Yufan.
You must understand, the first time I really spoke was to a Zionist group that you put together. I said, what am I going to do with them? They're Zionists. I don't know what they're talking about. But now you got to talk to them. And Annabelle insisted that I talk to the Zionist group.
We know each other from high school. He was very active in high school. He was a big politician in high school. He was the president of the GO. What does the GO stand for? I forgot.
I was never with any Zionist organization, but I was always very Jewish. And because we were both Jewish, had the same class and the same idea, that many things we had were very much the same.
Murray did this marvelous thing going into Aliyabet, and he spoke about it, and he wrote about it.
She wouldn't let me alone. She said, you've got to speak. I didn't grasp the necessity of conveying what I had been through and what I learned. This was a whole new ballgame. I'm talking to people who don't know anything. And they were Zionists.
So you spoke for a long time before you went back to Israel.
Yeah, oh sure. When I went back, that was the end. That was it.
No, that was the beginning.
Well, that's right. That was the beginning of the end.
At the time the new state of Israel was established, Murray was traveling through the US, meeting with groups and spreading the word about the endeavors of the Jews' secret fleet. After a while, Murray decided to pay a visit to one of his touring companions who went back home to his family in the newly born state of Israel.
I went to Petach Tikva to meet my friend, Zerubbabel.
Meet Zerubbabel Chefetz. He lived in one of the first houses in Ein Ganim that later became Petach Tikva. This was no ordinary house. Zerubbabel's cousin, Zevi, that lived there as a kid, came for a visit to bring back some memories from that house, a house that became Murray's home.
It was such an unbelievable feeling, you know. You had a home, and it was a real home. And of course, there was always what to eat, what to drink. There's no problem with that. They believed this is the place you have to be. I mean, they had this whole feeling of what people call Zionism. This is your home, you know. And they wouldn't think of anything else. There was not. You know, there wasn't a key to get into the house. No key. I mean, there was no lock. Everything, you walked in, that's all. This was a one-family kibbutz in a way.
It was a tradition to get everybody who came from outside. My grandfather used to look for people who came from Russia to get them and give him the stuff.
No, it was truly a unique place, that house. It was just unique. Nobody ever asked you for money. There was always food. Open the refrigerator, eat. You know, as I went on in life, I realized most places are not like this. Here, when you came because they wanted you to stay.
After having some laughs and a nice visit with Zerubbabel, Murray felt that the trip was coming to an end.
And I said, well, I'm going to go home. And his mother said, you don't go home. There's only one home. It's Israel. I said, what do you mean? What am I going to do here? I'm going back home? No, you're not allowed to go home. This is home for Jews. And I said, well, what am I going to do here? We'll put you to work. And they put me to work on their farm. I tell you, my shoes got worn out right away, and it was crazy.
Farming wasn't really for Murray. So what did he do to make a living?
There was what they call a hootenanny.
Hootenanny most commonly refers to a folk music party with an open mic.
A song fest, a private one, at someone's home. And they had a whole bunch of friends, and my friend was invited, so I went along. The fellow who played the guitar, he said, oh, you want a job? I said, no. He says, no, I got a job, really good job that was offered to me, so maybe it's interesting. And I said, okay, I'll listen, but he tells me a little bit about where it is. It's in Haifa, and well, it was the natural job for me. It was perfect.
The company was PEC, right?
PEC, Palestine Economic Corporation. And it was the investment corporation for Israel. And the company gave me a car, and the gas, and everything. And here I am, an eligible bachelor. Who can have a better life? You can't imagine what it was then. Having a car in Israel in the 1950, wow! It was this king of the hill. And I found my niche being at the best hotel in Haifa. And I made friends with the owners and also with the front desk clerk. And I told them what I'm doing. Well, they became part of the business. They knew who was coming, and they said, Greenfield, this. They would point out they could see from the reservations. So I had good leads. I was very successful as a salesman. Made good money. Didn't pay taxes in Israel because I was getting paid in America. In America, I didn't pay taxes. I didn't live there. So I paid it from both ends. And I laughed. I said, Jesus, you live so cool.
So Murray was enjoying the good life of being a successful bachelor. But his biggest achievement was about to unfold. Meeting Chana.
I was working for my company. I was in Tel Aviv. We were having a big dinner. At my table is this girl and this guy. What they got to do with this whole thing? Well, they had nothing to do with it. They came to the hotel, well dressed, so they think you're part of the party. They drink, they eat, no bills, and I'm sitting at their table, or they're sitting at my table, whatever.
Not giving much thought to that funny meeting, Murray carried on with his life. Until a while later,
I had a big car,
And I walk out and I'm starting to go to my car, and she's there, and she looks at me, she says, I know you. And that was the beginning. It didn't take very long. Hannah said, let's get married. That was the furthest thing from my mind. But if you met Hannah, you'd know. She decided it's time to get married, we get married. What do you know what happens in life? You don't know anything.
We let the years fly by a bit too fast. So let's go back to our timeline.
After 5 years of PEC, it's enough is enough. And the director of AACI was leaving.
AACI, Association of Americans and Canadians in Israel.
And they asked me, why don't you? I was eligible. And I thought it was a great challenge. So I took on the job with AACI.
So from here to there, Murray was building a reputation of a man you want on your side if you were looking to help bring in Jews to Israel. Bringing the Mapilim to Palestine was only the first step for Murray in leading a life of Arvut Hadadit, mutual help. But in the late 70s, after already helping thousands of Olim from all over the world, Murray is called up for a new Aliyah challenge, the Ethiopian Jews.
One day I did a telephone call. Howard Leno, the professor.
Howard at the time was the president of AAEJ, the American Association for Ethiopian Jews.
And he tells me that Rabbi Emanuel Rackman, the president of Bar-Ilan University, recommended that he talks to me. I said, okay, come. Rackman said so. Rackman to me was the highest of anybody. And Howard came. So he said, what we need is somebody got to be the connection between us in America and them in Israel. And we have no one that we can rely on. Rackman recommends you. So I said, okay. I didn't know what I was getting into. He introduced me to Rachman. He spoke a little bit of English at the time. Luckily, I had Rachman to translate for me. Not so much the language, but translate who they were and what they were. You could talk to somebody you not know anything about, but Rachman, he taught me, because I asked him questions, how and who they were. Whatever he said, I learned. I had no way to learn from. And it just sort of developed.
Now, we were lucky enough to have some individual Jewish people to be interested about our cause, such as Mori and others from the AAEJ. And if we did not have this kind of people, I am not for that we could make our Aliyah to Israel.
To me, I think the important thing is that the Israelis began to start to accept that these people were Jews. That was the important thing that happened.
So you have this kind of people, very unique, special people, and Mori is one of them. Actually, the unique person. When I say Mori, it's Chana. Special person. She cares about everybody. And she said to Mori always that they come here asking for some money or something. I believe that they did it. I remember that she said, I was in the concentration camp, and I know what it means. You have to be a special person, and they were a special person. So he believes in what is going. And he believes in the Jewish existence. Kol Israel Arabim Zalazeh. That is his motive. So that's more.
No. So
you are always perfect.
Perfect. We try hard. This is terrible. You feel like you're drowning.
The years fly by, Murray.
Listen, it's an old day.
It comes to new people you never forget.
That's right.
Never forget. Your history is embedded in me. It's inscribed. It's inscribed in me.
So you didn't do bad. See, but I'm trying to tell people, I never knew he could really speak anything but English.
It's basically true.
I know. Then he suddenly opened up his mouth. He spoke every language in the world. They're on the map. Everybody knows what that means. When you said we're on the map, you spoke every language in the world. But that was a genuine language of the people. We're on the map. And you spoke an international language. And they always thought they were going to make an international language. You made it. No, it's to me, I think that was a great success of it all. It wasn't that we won. That was one thing. But winning was not enough. Keeping it alive, and by saying we're on the map. Gee, everybody understood it. Everybody said it. And that statement, I felt, was such an international language. Some of the beach speaks every language.
When I look at Murray, he wasn't a Zionist. We were both Jewish being raised, in the United States. But at that time, we didn't know about Zionism. We didn't know about it. But we came to Israel and we both became a Zionist by being in Israel and seeing that there's something bigger more than your personal life, no matter what you're doing. In his capabilities as far as other things, in the publishing business, in creating the organizations, it's like you become a Zionist, and it's something that you don't take for granted. People that from the outside that come to Israel, they know the big picture. They've been around the world. And it gives something in your life that you have more of a meaningful. Murray, going on his 95th year, sleeps very well at night because he knows what he has done for this country, and that's something that you can't buy for money. There's no price on something, you can't label it. Because Murray was brought up to see the big picture and don't let the small stuff get in the way.
Yes.
Right, Murray?
Oh, no question. Listen, you grew up behind me, but you've got the same feelings in the air. Hello, good to see you and say hello. How are you doing? It's an old mishpucha. How old are you? I'm not sure. You recognize him.
That's my dad's father.
Yes.
You?
We were on an airplane with your father, and we all got off, and my wife is schlepping the luggage. He looks at me. He took the luggage from her and he started carrying the luggage.
Murray's story is not only a story regarding a specific operation. It represents a generation which is the generation that brought us to independence. And in fact, he's one of the last remaining people who can tell the story because he devoted his life fully to Aliyah. Aliyah, immigration to Israel, from day one when he started, is the engine that keeps this nation going. This is something metaphysical. The Jews from all over the world dream of setting their home here. And what did he do? He epitomized the idea of Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh B'Zeh.
Amen.
That's what you did.
That's it.
And like your mom said, they're Jews of Europe. So there's something there of this Arvut Adadit, which is unique to our people. And he exemplifies it. Definitely a hero, definitely somebody who was honest and a leader, but it all stems from this Arvut story.
Murray's story started way before he was born, back in the days of our biblical forefathers. And still, what you see here is merely the beginning. it's safe to say that when Murray's mom said that if he wants to do something good for the Jewish people, he doesn't have to go to college, it was a pretty good call.
First of all, Yoni, thank you very, very, very much. It's an amazing film. We look forward to the full-length film in the next few years. And I'll just tell you a short story about ice cream with my father. One day I'm in the United States with my father at some conference, and some older man comes up to him and says, "How old are you?" And my father says, "Why?" He says, "You look pretty good for your age." So he looks at him and he says, "But how old are you?" He says, "I don't remember my age." He says, "Well, you must be younger than I am." He says, so my father says, "How old are you?" So the guy says, "I'm 85. My father says, 85? Tutzik. I'm almost 90. He says, "Can't be." He says, "Did I ever lie to you?" He says, "No." He says, "Why should I start lying now?" So he says, "How do you keep so well?" He says, "I'll tell you a secret. I just don't eat sugar." So I think, geez, my father's starting to lie now. I take him aside and I tell him, "Abba, you don't eat sugar?" He said, "What about all the ice cream?" He says, "You know, ice cream is ice cream, that's not sugar." תודה רבה לכולם, שנה טובה לכולם. ניפגש בגולל ב-99. באמת, thank you very much for everybody for coming, for all the generations, for all the stories. And as you walk out of the table, we'll try and organize. Again, please, every family, take just one copy of the book. Read it. I think you'll learn that nothing changes in life. תודה רבה.